How we doing? All right? Good. A little cold out there, isn't it? That's good. That's good. I'm glad we cranked it up. But got two announcements today. Obviously, promoting Bryan McClendon to our offensive coordinator. He'll continue to coach receivers. In his 2 years here at South Carolina, he's been outstanding. You see all the rapport that he has with our staff, with our players, how he positively affects everybody in our organization. Very easy to see that when I want to go a different direction for the bowl game. And talking to Bryan, I said, listen, I just want to be balanced. I want to dictate the tempo of the game, and I want to be aggressive. And he did all three things. He took it and ran with it. The command that he had with our staff, with our players, was outstanding. The leadership ability that he has as a coordinator and a future head coach is obvious to me. There's a reason why at Georgia you name him intern coach in the bowl game and they win the bowl game, because the kids believe in his leadership abilities and the example he sets for young people. And I'm excited about it. I thought the biggest question obviously is game day. Okay, guys never called a game. So how is that going to go against the best defense we played this year? And I thought it went very well. I thought our plan was good. Obviously, in the first part of the game, we had a hard time blocking them. I mean, just call it like it is. In protection in the run game, the adjustments made at halftime to change protections, which we did, more seven-man protection to get the ball vertically down the field, more quick game, and to stay with the tempo, which was affecting them defensively. And, again, calm, cool, and collected throughout the entire time. I was extremely impressed with how he managed the situation and how we were able to adjust. I know that in his first game calling a game, he did a lot better than a lot of proven coordinators. I can tell you that. So I'm excited about that and excited about our room. I got great belief in Bryan and our entire offensive staff. Bobby will go back to coaching running backs and did a fantastic job in the bowl game with Jake. And again, Jake played at a high level, and Bobby's more than qualified to be a quarterback coach at South Carolina and a coordinator. I mean, the guy's an outstanding coach. Eric Wolford, Pat Washington, those guys have done a fantastic job for us. I'm going to name Dan Warner as our quarterbacks coach through this process. I talked to a lot of people, interviewed Dan one-on-one, and then I brought him to Columbia for a day of bowl practice, and he and Bryan hit it off, and I saw that this was going to be able to work. Dan's got a wealth of experience and knowledge as a play caller, as a developer of quarterbacks. I called Nick. He's presently at Alabama in an off-the-field role. And I called Nick, and nobody I've got more respect for in his opinion and how much Dan has helped their offense this year with schematically some things that are very similar to what we do, which excited me. In 2015, I was the defensive coordinator at Auburn. We played Ole Miss. Dan was the coordinator and play caller, and they had 558 yards. That doesn't happen to us very often. But they were creative. They played with a lot of tempo. They were aggressive. They had good players, but they were coached extremely well. And I was more than impressed with Dan. And as a coach, you always kind of have a short list of guys that impressed you. And he certainly that day did. Then you go back and look at the research and the development at the quarterback position of Bo Wallace and Chad Kelly, and set numerous records at Ole Miss, which has had some great quarterback play. You go back to Miami, he was a part of 3 national championships, coached a Heisman Trophy winner in Gino Torretta, and also a Maxwell Award winner in Ken Dorsey. So his track record speaks for itself, his experience. I'm really excited about this combination. As a coordinator, when I was a coordinator for a lot of years at a high level, I always had sounding boards in the room, because the game plan process is how you're going to attack an offense or a defense. The situational football that always comes up are discussed through that week for game day. And there's no question that Dan's going to be an outstanding sounding board for Bryan in that room, along with another outstanding offensive staff that we have here at South Carolina. I don't have any announcements on the 10th coach. That'll be made next week. We're still working through that and talking through some other people. And right now, roster-wise, I think we're in good shape as far as no defections or anything like that at this time. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions you have for Bryan or myself.
Raise your hand. I'll come to you, David.
Will, how much was familiarity with the staff and the current players a factor in promoting Bryan?
Well, again, you don't make a decision just based on comfort. You make a decision on what you think is the best fit and the best hire for the University of South Carolina, and that's what I did. So, again, you can see the belief I have in him and the job he's going to do and how he positively affects our players, but I think is really important. The continuity, I do think, is good. That we will tweak and change what we do based on what our players do best. And Bryan's committed to doing that. We're not going to get into specifics of that, but obviously moving forward with our offensive staff and getting into spring ball and those things to what do our players do best. We lose Allen Knott, Corey Helms, and Hayden Hurst as far as 3 guys that played a considerable amount. So certainly the verbiage and things will be good for some continuity.
Bryan, what are you going to be looking for from the offense going forward?
Sure. And I think it's all just a buy-in to everything that we have going on here in South Carolina as a team. One of the biggest things that Coach Muschamp always talks about is effort, toughness, and discipline. I think on offense we want to lead the country in effort and toughness and discipline. And and I think it all goes throughout the whole team aspect. But Coach said it best. It's not like we're going to, reinvent the wheel offensively or anything like that. One thing that we do have to do is do a great job of giving our players the best chance to be successful. And I think that's kind of all any coach can be asked to do. Coach mentioned it in the bowl game, man. We were kind of having some problems and everything else doing, protecting them or even blocking them, just flat out blocking them. And so we had to change some things in order to help those guys get in front of them a little bit better. So if that means adding an extra guy in on protection or things like that, then that's what we got to do. So, but that's what we're constantly going to be trying to do is give our guys get creative and giving our guys ways to succeed.
Coach, whether it was the first half of the Outback Bowl or even before that when Roper was the offensive coordinator, how important is it going to be to get that offensive line? I mean, it seems like the last couple of years, even before you were here,
sure,
that's just been an area to be able to fix. How important is that going to be?
Well, it's important. When you look, I think one of the things, and not to say that they're not great D-lines everywhere. I'm not saying that. Trust me, I'm not. But I think that's what separates the SEC from a lot of other conferences. It's just, they're so good at the line of scrimmage defensively. And so that's one thing that you better have shored up. And so, we got to do a great job. And one is just like anything else, just like any other part of any college program, you got to recruit well. And that is going to be the main focus of what we're doing, especially this week coming up. We get a chance. I mean, these few weeks coming up, we get a chance to get ahead on those 2019 prospects, and we got to take advantage of that. But that's going to be the number one thing is recruiting well. But other than that, we got to do a great job of mixing things up and changing up snap counts or doing whatever we got to do to give our guys the best chance to be able to compete at a high level up there up front.
Bryan, there were some reports out there that said, you had some options to leave.
Sure.
Why ultimately did you stay at South Carolina, and when did you find out that you were the offensive coordinator?
Well, Coach and I, we had a conversation actually right after the game. But the plan was, I tell people this all the time. When we moved here from the University of Georgia, moving sucks. You know what I mean? That's just, it's hard. It's hard on the families. I mean, you're away from your family at a certain point in time. So we wanted to choose a place when we left that we felt like we could be there for a while. Okay, and that's the reason why we're here. I mean, we didn't come here to try to bounce around to try to do a bunch of different things. We believe in South Carolina. That's why we're here. That's why we came here in the first place. So to know that I can, to know that Coach has the trust in me to kind of move up the ladder and promote me to OC. I mean, it's invaluable. You know what I mean? It really is, and it means a lot to me. It means a lot to the family. But ultimately, we got to do what's best for South Carolina, and that's what we're here, and that's what we're here to do.
Bryan, is there a guy or guys offensively who you feel like have had the biggest influence on you in your career?
Sure. I've been real fortunate, man, and real blessed to work with a lot of good offensive coaches. I came up and cut my teeth under Coach Rick. I think he's one of he's a very, very bright offensive coach. He believes in teaching. He believes in not just coaching and not just doing things, but teaching the how to do of certain things. And that's but Mike Bobo, I think, is a very good offensive coach. Brian Schottenheimer, and Kurt Roper, you learn something from everybody that you kind of deal with. I think the biggest thing that I've learned the most since I've been here is going up against Coach Muschamp and T. Rob's defense every day. I mean, you're talking about a one of the best defensive minds in college football, you know, that you get to go up against every single day, you know, and it's really good because it's not just like, hey, he's coming out there trying to attack you. It's like, hey, why don't you guys try this? This gives us problems and things like that to kind of help you along. And that's where I've learned the most at, to be honest with you, over these past few years.
When will Dan report? Will you stay with Bama throughout the game?
Yes, he will be with Alabama. He'll be here the 9th of the 10th and start work on the 11th.
Will, how important was it to be able to make the decision today instead of having it drag on? I know you want to get focused on just recruiting and moving forward with that. And how much did the impact with just what the players were saying after the game maybe speed that up or play a role in this?
No, again, it goes back to it's not about comfort. It's about what's the best decision. So this was the best decision for us. I felt that way after the game. I wanted to sleep on it tonight to make sure that, again, making the best decision for South Carolina. It's not about comfort. It's about what's the best foot moving forward. And there's no question that Bryan was the guy. So I called him the next morning, and we talked and had a great conversation. And Steve Fink wanted to have a press conference on Friday. So there you go.
John Whittle.
Will, did you have some reservations about hiring a first-time play caller, and is there anything beyond the bowl game that gives you some added confidence in his ability to call plays in the field for the game?
You know, again, I think that was the biggest question mark I had. Obviously, all the other qualities I was looking for were there, and you see the adjustments and the things that he did on game day were really good. Made my comfort level obviously go much higher. So I don't have any. I don't see this as a gamble at all. I see this as a very sure, good decision for our program.
Did you go into this thinking that you were going to hire somebody with play calling experience?
Oh, I didn't know. I mean, I talked to a lot of people in the month of December, watched a lot of film. I mean, to me, your film is your resume as a coach. You know, so I watched a lot of people and saw different things that different people were doing and felt like, you know, that this could have gone in any different direction.
Bryan, how was it calling the game from the booth? I think for most of your career, you've always been on the sideline coaching. Is that something you plan to stick with? And I don't know, Coach Muschamp, if you've thought about if Dan will go in the booth or if that's something you've even gotten that far into thinking.
Sure. I think, well, it was different. To answer your first question, it was different. You could definitely see everything a little bit. It's kind of similar to watching it on TV. You just kind of know what's going to happen or think you know, you're hoping what's going to happen. But I think, you know, who's up and who's down and all that other stuff, it really goes into the dynamic of that staff at the time. You know, you want somebody that could always kind of rally the troops down there and that could communicate very, very quickly and very, very effectively. You know, in a short period of time, because, you know, down there on the field, you got a lot of different things that has to go on, and you got to be able to trust that communication chain of command, kind of, so to speak. So I think it's different. I would like to talk with Dan a little bit more about where he feels most comfortable at, and then kind of go from there. But you know, ultimately, it's going to be able to coach. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I did like it. I did like it, and you know, just with it being so different, it will take some getting used to. But if that's the best thing for our staff and best thing for our players, and there's no question that that's what I'm going to do. So you know, I think you know, one thing that Coach Muschamp, he does a great job of it is in the summer having scrimmages be like games, so I can kind of get a view of kind of doing them both. But it does help me a lot to see it a little bit better upstairs. So, you know, right now that's what I'm thinking.
Bryan, how much have you crossed paths with Dan in the past, and how much can he help you as a coach who's spent over 40 years?
I hadn't crossed, other than, you know, recruiting, you kind of cross paths with everybody down here in the SEC. You bump shoulders with everybody's recruiting kind of the same areas. So you meet people. Didn't get a real good chance to sit down and talk with him until he came over here and visited, and then we've had phone conversations and stayed in constant communication ever since. So, but I am really, really, really excited about working with the guy. I mean, the guy that's done it at such a high level. I mean, he's led the conference in pretty much every statistical category that you can as a play caller. you know. And so when you got a guy that, one, he's just a good person, you know what I mean? He values the right things. He values making a good man more so than making a football player, and then, you know, because one kind of takes care of the next. So when you have a guy who kind of prioritizes all the right stuff and has the offensive knowledge that he has, I think it's a win-win, and I'm excited about bringing him here as an offensive staff, because I do feel like we got a really good offensive staff, man, that knows a lot of ball and has done it at a high level for a long time. And so I think he's going to be a huge addition, but I'm so excited about working with him. But, you know, Coach said it's like having a soundboard, you know. You know, there's no secret. I worked at Georgia for a while, and, you know, Coach Rick was Mike Bobo's soundboard when he was calling plays, you know. And, you know, Coach Muschamp's T-Rob's soundboard. He could say, hey, I see what you're seeing. You might want to try it a different way, you know what I mean, because I tried it like this and it didn't turn out so well. But so he could just kind of help you through some different things. So that's why I'm excited about working. I'm excited about working with them.
Bryan, obviously, without going into specifics, do you like the structure of this offense, or are there bigger concept-wise changes that you kind of like to implement?
Sure, I think Coach mentioned it. I mean, there might be one or two things that, you know, that you'll see that'll be noticeably different. You know, I do think every coach right now is kind of going through the same thing, you know, because you're getting a brand new team. You got guys leaving, you got new guys coming in, so, you know, the biggest challenge is just trying to figure out, you know, where all the pieces fit right now. You know, I mean, like you said, man, we're going to have some shuffling to make sure we're getting our best 5 offensive linemen out there on the field. I mean, we don't know who that's going to be yet. I mean, you know, so everybody's kind of falling in line there. And so, you know, to answer your question, I think, you know, the only thing that we can do and that I can promise you is that we're going to play to our strengths. You know, and that's kind of and what those will be, I think time will tell.
Bryan, over the years, how much time did you spend drawing up plays, whether it was, you know, in class or waiting on a flight or when you got a little bit of free time on your hands?
I think it never stops. You know, it never stops. I mean, you're constantly seeing stuff and constantly looking, and I think that's not just me. That's everybody. I think that does well in any profession. They want to constantly grow. So, I mean, I'm constantly looking, and I've already talked with Coach about some people I want to go and visit with. And this was even before all of this coordinator stuff even happened. You know what I mean? Just so I can constantly grow, because I think you can never stop growing. You can never stop learning enough.
Will, however you want to define this term, how many people did you interview for this job?
Numerous.
Numerous is more than 5, more than 10?
Probably not 10.
Between 5 and 10. And how much, if any, was a fact?
Why is that so important?
I don't know. It's just interesting.
You're interesting.
That's very kind of you to say.
I could say some other things, but I don't want to get in trouble.
That would be less kind, I assume. Was keeping Bryan on staff a factor in your decision?
No.
Okay.
No. Hiring the best fit and the best coach for the position was the most important thing. And whether that was going to be Bryan or whoever it was, that was the most important thing.
You just kind of touched on it, but Will, how important was it to keep him on for recruiting purposes, and do you know where Dan will recruit right now?
No, the most important thing was hiring the best offensive coordinator for the University of South Carolina. So let's make that extremely clear. And we have not really talked in terms of obviously adding another coach to the staff of what recruiting areas we will. I've got some ideas, but I'd rather get those in cement before we talk about them. So. You know, having another coach and where will their value be in the recruiting, you know, areas and different things. So we'll go through that.
Will, with these moves being finished, do you anticipate any other shuffling, staff changes?
I do not.
Anything like that? How about players? Have any players come to you and said, you know, maybe I want to make a different decision next year or anything like that?
We've got a January 15th, I believe, team meeting that night. Our staff will be out recruiting, so Jeff Dillman and Maria Hickman, our academic coordinator, will run that meeting. But at this time, no one has talked to me, player or coach, about not being a part of our team moving forward.
Will, what was the thinking about moving Bobby back to running backs coach and going outside to bring in a quarterbacks coach?
Well, I think that the wealth of knowledge that Dan has had in our league at a very high level, as a quarterback developer and play caller was really important. To me, Phil, it's all about fit. How do things fit? How do they work together? And you look at our defensive staff. You got T-Rob's a defensive back guy. Lance has been with us. He understands how we play up front. Mike Peterson's been with us. He understands how we're going to play and how we're going to coach things up front. Coleman Hutzler understands at linebacker how we want things taught and coached and teached. And so, to me, it's all about fit. And I felt like that Dan was the best fit for us. Certainly, Bobby's more than qualified. I'd also like to make everybody's Amber, Brian's beautiful wife, is here, and Braden. How old's Braden now?
3 months.
3 months. Wow. Amber gets up at night for Braden. Brian doesn't. I knew that. Keep that on the down low there. But
Well, how much does Brian's role in recruiting shift or change, if at all, in terms of going
it really doesn't. As a coordinator, obviously during the season, at times position coaches may go out on a Friday night, and I go out on Friday nights to recruit. I don't want the coordinators going out because we have meetings and walkthroughs and such with our team. So generally, my rule of thumb is the special teams coordinator, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and both line coaches don't go out on Friday night. Other than that, it doesn't change anything. You'll be on the road as much as anyone else, as much as myself or anybody else on our staff.
Well, how impressed were you with Brian's changes from the first half to the second half? And then a question for Brian, what changes did you make from the first half to the second half in the Outback Bowl?
Well, again, I think that was a huge, comfort level for me to see the adjustments made. We were having a hard time blocking them. I'll let him go through schematically some different things we did protection-wise to get the ball in the perimeter and the run game more, to continue to stay with the tempo. And, you can't freak out after a 3 and out. I mean, at the end of the day, that's part of it. But you got to be able to and I thought, we had some drives in the first half. We had the exchange issue with AJ and Jake, and we eliminated one possession offensively with the punt return. With Chris thought the ball had hit Javon Charleston, he tried to get the ball, so we eliminated a possession for us there. So, again, the adjustments I thought were outstanding in order for us to have an opportunity to win the game. And you know what? If your players don't believe in what you're doing, we don't win that game. Our players believed in what we were doing. That affords you to win a game. And there goes now back to the intangible qualities that a coach can bring to the table for you.
Sure. As far as the adjustments, Coach said it, and there was no secret. We kind of struggled with just blocking those guys. They were really, really, really good up front, and we knew it going in. I mean, they're not a top 5 defense in the country for no reason at all. And so, just knew that we were going to have to kind of keep punching. We were going to have to keep the tempo up. As far as what we had to do, I mean, I knew we had to start getting the ball on the perimeter a little bit more. So the one saving grace that we kind of had is that they weren't scoring. It wasn't like they were just running. It wasn't like they were just running up points on us. So I knew we could stay patient and get the ball on the perimeter and not have to feel like we needed chunk yardage right away. And so when as far as protection changed up, I did have to go to some more 7-man protection and more slide protection, not as much man protection to where that guy had that guy, where he can always get help from somebody inside. So no matter what, we could do that and then take advantage of some shots outside. And then I knew if we were going to run the ball, we kind of had to do it in a hurry as well. So do it at a fast tempo. So other than that, I mean that was kind of it. We kind of expressed that to the guys and knew that it was going to be. I mean, that's why the games are 4 quarters. You know what I mean? They're not won at halftime. They're not won in 3 quarters. You got to play all 4, and our guys believed in that, and they knew that somebody was going to have to make a play, and those guys did it.
Will, and what's the progress? What progress are Debo and Bryson making in their injuries and recoveries? Is there a chance we'll see either of them take part in some part of the spring?
Bryson will not go through spring. Jamias Williams will not go through spring. We did have 2 postseason surgeries. Mon Denson had a cleanup on his knee. He might be pushing it I think he's going to be out 6 weeks. He might be pushing it. Donnell Stanley had surgery on his knee, which is a cleanup. He'll be fine. He'll be back working out in January. And Bryson will not go through spring. And then Debo, he'll be fine for spring. Mm-hmm.
Bryan, when you look at the state of your receiver room with who's coming back, who's coming in, how excited are you about the future? Of that?
Well, it's exciting. You know, this is the one time that we're actually be able to play with some true veterans. You know, with Bryan Edwards being there, being a 3-year starter, Debo coming back, being a 3-year starter, you know, Shy, Ortre, Chad, you know, Chavis, all those guys have played significant time, you know, and then even the young guys coming in with the talent level that we get that I feel like we're bringing in. Now we have quality depth where we can constantly kind of roll people and keep playing fast out there. So it's exciting knowing kind of what we have, and like I said, it's not a bunch of first-time starters out there, you know what I mean, which would be for the first time here in a couple of years.
Bryan, did anything surprise you about the process of calling a game, and did you feel sort of able to kind of empty the playbook a little bit in kind of that bowl scenario?
Not so much. Like I said, I constantly was trying to search for ways just to try to make sure that our guys could succeed out there, and so we felt like, you know, we had a couple different things that we could have taken advantage that we could take advantage of, but the biggest thing was just knowing that those guys were good. They were good, and that we had to keep everybody positive. You know, I mean, that was just my thing, just saying to all the coaches that were down on the field, hey man, make sure we staying positive with these guys and know that, hey man, we got to keep punching, and you know, something's going to break, man. We just got to keep going and make our plays, and let's not help them like we were trying to do. I felt like in the first half, I felt like we were kind of doing some things to help them out a little bit.
Bryan, is it your ultimate goal in coaching to become a head coach, and do you feel like moving from a position coach to a coordinator now is the right time in your career?
Well, ultimately, I think a lot of people have goals and aspirations to be head coach. You know, so to answer that question, I think eventually. You know, the one thing I did learn as being the interim head coach is that no matter what, you're not ready. You know what I mean? No matter what progression you go through in the coaching ranks. So whether it's from position coach to head coach or coordinator to head coach, there's still so much that you don't learn until you get there. So, you know, I'm excited about this opportunity. I mean, when Coach came to me and just told me I was calling it for the bowl game, and people kind of asked me how I felt then, it's the same way I feel about it now. It's just, I think it's truly a blessing. You know, I mean, you get guys that go through their whole coaching career and never get an opportunity like this. And so the only thing I was focused on is just making sure I did a good job of taking care of that blessing that I had. So now I'm doing the same thing now. And so that's what I've done my whole coaching career. You know, so wherever it leads me, I think I'm fine with that. But you know, that right now that's the goal.
Coach McClendon, you know, you're one of very few African Americans in this position now in the country. The fact that you're in this position, you have this opportunity, and like you said, Muschamp, you know, really helped groom you, moved you up in this organization. I guess how are you feeling going into your first year as the first offensive coordinator for South Carolina?
Well, I think, you know, I think it's truly a blessing. It really is. I mean, it says a lot about not just me. It says a lot about Coach Muschamp. You know, it really does, and kind of, you know, his comfort level with everything too. You know, just, you know, this is a big hire for him. You know, it's just, let's say what it is. It's a big hire for him. So, and not just him. You know, it's a big hire for the University of South Carolina. So, just to place that trust in me, I think, you know, is really important. You know, so kind of regardless of whatever it is, I think it's truly a blessing. I'm proud to be it. You know, we just got to do a good job of taking care of all the day-to-day stuff to stay there.
For Coach Muschamp, with so many of the signing class already signed, how does the pace change over the next month, or the priorities? How does it look different?
No, it's funny. You know, Bryan and I were talking the other day. Offensively, we're going to have Josh Vann, Tyquan Johnson, and Javon Gwynn, and there needs to be another offensive lineman involved in that group. But 4 guys that will not go through spring. Our entire offense is going through spring ball because of the mid-year enrollees. Defensively, Jabari Ellis, Jonathan Gibson. I can't talk. We got to make sure I can't talk about something. J.C. Horn, and then one other that won't go through spring, and better be another D lineman in that group too. But so because of the mid-year enrollees, we got all these. I mean, all of these guys are going to go through spring ball with us, which is huge. in the development part of it. It's changed because, as Bryan said earlier, you're starting on 2019 class and 2020 class. I mean, you're getting further ahead on those guys, and you're going to get better evaluations in January on the younger classes because you're not spending as much time with the 2018. But we're going to have 13 mid-year guys on campus right now, so that's what's changed a little bit for the good, in my opinion.
Yeah, Bryan, you said earlier that you weren't interested in moving around or anything like that. There were reports that Tennessee came after you with a lot of money. Was there a decision in there at some point in time that you did have to make? Was that a correct story that they came after you with a big offer?
Well, I kind of keep on. I'll say this. However it happened, I'm glad, and I'm glad that we are where we are right now. Okay, and so, I mean, I'm happy to be here at South Carolina. I'm happy to be the offensive coordinator and receivers coach here at South Carolina.
Just because they put it on the internet doesn't mean it's true, especially when you tweet it.
Anything else?
As much information there is out there, there's a lot of misinformation, too.
No question.
Bryan, just how much progress did you feel that your group of receivers kind of made across the course of this season, especially losing a guy like Debo during it?
Well, I think we made huge strides, and what it did, it forced some guys to grow up a little bit quicker. To be honest with you, because my group, and you could see it, and not just my group, but I thought sometimes offensively a little bit, man, we can kind of just wait around and then Debo will get us out of it. You know what I mean? And so when that happened, and now we couldn't do that, and so it made a Bryan Edwards step up. It made a Jake have to trust other people. It made Hayden step up. It made Ortre and Shy Smith have to step up and not be freshmen anymore, so to speak. So I think it helped us overall with the development of all the all the other pieces that are around them, and so obviously, man, getting him back, I think is huge. Just getting it, getting the playmaking ability back, I think is huge. But I think it grew a lot of people up. To answer your question.
Coach McClendon, your receivers had the lowest drop rate in the SEC, and Shy Smith didn't have any. Is that something you take some pride in?
Yeah, we put a lot of pressure on the guys to catch the football here. We put a lot of pressure on them. And so, I mean, you could ask Coach, I mean, you see my guys doing up downs after practice. We got up downs for every drop that we have in the group. We have 5 up downs, to be honest with you, for every drop. And that's everybody. So if one person dropped, that means that the whole group is 5, and it kind of goes up from there. And I tell them, if you can't handle the pressure I put on you, they catch it out there at practice, and it's going to be hard for you to handle the pressure of catching the football in the game. So, but I think that's kind of overall. You got to put pressure on them, and that's what practice is for. You know what I mean? It's just to help kind of sharpen those guys up for the game. But we put a huge emphasis on it. I hate that you asked me about it. So now we go out there and have 5 drops. You know what I'm saying? So, but no, we put a huge emphasis on it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.